Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Optibotimus coming to you with another video review. And today, thanks to the folks at ThreeA, we're going to be taking a look at their new premium scale Megatron from Transformers Dark of the Moon. For the package, as you can see on the front, got a really nice side image of Megatron's head, absolutely looking menacing. I love the way that looks. But as you can see, it's also absolutely massive. This package is huge, obviously really denoting just how big the figure itself is. And then you can see that it's two separate halves. You got the front half here that's black, and then the back half here, which is purple. You come around here to the back of the box, and you got Transformers here along the side, as well as their tech specs for Megatron himself, something that they did with their Bumblebee, which I'm glad that they continue to do. It's a nice kind of homage to the original Transformer toys that used to do that. Then of course you've got ThreeA down here in the various warnings. And then like I said, for the package, it comes around and then it just slides up just like so. And then getting this out of the way and setting this right here. On the back of the package also, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you can also see, yeah, you can actually see it right there. You got another side image of Megatron, which even looks better than the front one. You got his mouth open, just looking really aggressive. That's really very cool. And then the inside has multiple layers of foam, which is just designed to protect the figure. Obviously, at such a high price point, you want to make sure that the figure is going to get to you safely. And all these various layers of foam help do that. And you can see, I mean, there's various thicknesses, but you got that. This is a section here which would obviously hold his accessories and gun. This bit of foam comes down, and again, you can see just how thick that is. And then you come in, and this actually, all these pieces right here kind of fit in like a little jigsaw puzzle, and it really kind of wraps around the figure and gives it a 360-degree sort of protection. And then you can see the foam just continues on. And again, very thick foam here, so that when you do get this, you're going to basically be assured that the figure is going to be in good shape. So putting all these back in here, I mean, like, I'm just really impressed with this overall packaging on it. Again, you pay all this money for the figure, you want to make sure that it's not going to be damaged. But again, real, very high quality actual cardboard here on the outside. Packaging wise though, that is about it for it. So without further ado, let's get this guy out here and see how cool he actually is. Alright guys, so here we have Megatron opened up and out of his packaging. And again, ThreeA has done an absolute exquisite job capturing the likeness here. The amount of detail that they put into their pieces, just all the products that they do are really very impressive, but these Transformer ones just absolutely stand out. I really didn't think I was going to be all that much more impressed after getting their Bumblebee, but Megatron here is absolutely leaps and bounds in terms of detail over that. I mean, you can see an absolute amazing amount of paint detail in there. You got some really intricate looking pieces that all have an amazing amount of paint detail on there. I mean, looking at some of it, I mean, just without zooming in just yet, you can see a great amount of rust that's kind of added onto it. It's not actual rust. This is all plastic, but they're able to recreate that rust look so wonderfully. And then you can even see some bits of green in there that just kind of show decay. I mean, you got to remember that the Dark of the Moon version of Megatron was recreated from the Revenge of the Fallen version of Megatron, which was at the bottom of the ocean. And it's absolutely incredible that a lot of those same rusted and decayed looks that the Revenge of the Fallen Megatron had carries over here. This is really quite impressive. Now, for his accessories, he doesn't come with a heck of a lot. If you get the exclusive version, which is only available on a couple different websites, you get the, I don't even know what you call it, the head scarf or something, which I'm not very good at, making this look accurate, but it's really cool. I mean, you can see it's very tattered, very frayed. It has a couple different wires that run through it so that you can really position this very nicely. But I love the overall tattered look on this. I think that they did a wonderful job of kind of capturing that element. And then you also do get the Matrix of Leadership. Now, again, this is something that we saw in Revenge of the Fallen mostly, so it's kind of weird that we got it here, and of course my camera's not going to want to focus on it, just because, I mean, I got the background piece right there, but that does look really nice. It does look like the edges kind of like swoop a little bit more than I remember it doing in the movie, But in general, I think that's a really nice looking piece. And then you can see that it's got this little jewel thing in the center there. I mean, that's really pretty cool. You got a real nice paint detail going through there with some silver, which just in general nicely captures the kind of look from the film itself. Like I said, it is, you know, a piece that I don't think that they needed to really include, especially since this is the Dark of the Moon version of Megatron. But it's nice that they threw something else in there. And again, this is exclusive to the store online. I don't remember. It's like Bambaland or something like that. So you do get those pieces as exclusives. The majority of us are going to just get this though. And as it is, this looks incredible as well. It really is a great looking piece. You can see that he's got actual metal chains in here, which again, I'll come in here and show you all that detail here in just a second. You come around to the back and he does come with his, I think they call it like a brute rifle or something like that, but it's his gun. And you can see that it holsters here in the back. So sliding this out so that we can take a look at this just in detail. The amount of detail that they put into all of it, including the gun here, really is very, very nice. I mean, again, you can see that same weathered pattern coming through there with the rust color, and you got some green shades in there and everything. Overall, really very, very cool. I like the kind of scorched look around the barrel here. Really very cool on both sides. You can see that it all carries over very nicely. And then for the holster itself, it is a softer rubbery material so that you can get this in and slide it in there very easily, so that you don't have to worry about scraping the plastic or anything like that. And actually, I think I have that backwards. Now, the instructions, I will be honest, are not all that great. It goes through and shows you how to attach the chain here, which is fine. In some scenes, Megatron had it going over his right shoulder, but predominantly it was over his left shoulder. But in the film, he always held it in his right arm, so I slung it over this way. The instructions, though, have it facing the opposite direction, so it was a little bit kind of tricky to invert those instructions. But you know, as long as you get the general look for the chain on there and everything, and of course, you know, having it cross over his body like that, I think you're going to be perfectly fine. But speaking of the instructions, they do go through and show you the various points of articulation. Now, this says that it has 70 points of articulation, and a lot of it is not necessarily in like fingers moving. It's in pieces like this being able to articulate, or coming around here to the back, this piece right here sliding down on a spring, and same with this right here. That way you can articulate the legs. So those are pieces that are articulated, and I do wonder, all these wheels that you see down here in his legs, these also rotate. So I don't know if they necessarily consider that a point of articulation, but when they say 70 points of articulation, they don't necessarily mean, you know, this joint right here moving. I mean, which is basically two. You got two elbow joints there, but I'm not 100% sure if they're clear on which pieces they consider, you know, articulation points. And then the instructions also really don't give you a full overview of what pieces do articulate. So I will tell you that when you are manipulating this, you do want to use extreme bits of caution, because as you can see, there are a lot of panels and things on here, and you don't want to damage anything. You know, when, like, for example, there's two parts right here in his waist area, or I should say abdomen area, that do separate, allowing a little bit more of a range of motion, but you kind of have to grab hold of it. And again, I'll show all this off, but you have to grab hold of it. You do want to make sure that when you're doing it, you're not putting too much pressure on another piece here on the side that could potentially damage it. So do make sure you go through all those instructions. That way you just get a real good feel for what you can actually do with this guy. But coming in to take a look at some of the just overall detail on the guy, and first coming in to take a look at the head, I mean, that again, amazing amount of detail that's actually in there. You can see just how torn up it is on the side. I mean, that's really absolutely gorgeous. The layers of detail that they have really throughout this entire piece is really quite nice. And you can see that like his whole head is just damaged. I mean, you got his eyes right there. And one other thing that you come around here to the back is he does have a light up feature. It comes up here at the top, but what you need to do is you come around here to the back, and you can see you got this little section right here. This lifts off just like so, and then you got a switch right here that you just you insert the batteries, and then you flip that switch. The problem though is in doing so, you can see, let me turn these lights off. his eyes really are not very bright. I mean, that's kind of, and of course my camera wants to turn on, but you can see the eyes do light up. They're just really not all that great in terms of the brightness on the eyes. And you can see that one eye really kind of, is that blinking? What is that doing? That's like, I don't know if I have the batteries all the way down in there, but you can see one eye doesn't really want to stay lit up very well. Don't know what that's all about, but I mean, in general, the lights just are not really all that impressive, to be totally honest with you. I think that they could have been much better and a lot brighter. Bumblebees were much better done. I appreciate that they put the light up feature in there, but it just really could be a much better kind of feature, I think. Again, you can see great amount of paint detail in there that really does give it a very metal sort of look. Now, one thing that's quite impressive is just in general what they were able to do with the chains. I mean, these things, these are metal, but I honestly cannot tell you if they're actually rusted, like with real rust, or if that's paint detail on there. I honestly can't tell you. I mean, it does have a roughish kind of texture, so I don't know. I mean, it doesn't specifically say anywhere, but I mean, like that's great detail there. But these chains just, it's stunning what they were able to capture for that. And you can see that you got a couple clamps right here, like here, and then you got some on the side that help to hold it into place. But just in general, great extra detail kind of put in there. You come around here to the side, and again, getting this kind of out of the way. These pieces right here are a little bit softer, lifting his arms up. These little pieces right in there are a more softer material, which gives it some flex and everything like that. So it's really cool that, you know, it kind of gives it a more organic kind of feel to it. It's not all just this hard, rigid plastic, and so that's a softer material. These tires are also a softer rubber. And these ones up here, you see they do rotate, that's just kind of funny that they do that. But again, just the detail on this is stellar. I mean, you can see some more tires down in the elbow area. It's kind of hard to look at this and see any kind of vehicle in them. I mean, this is kind of a progression from them looking more alien and being able to actually see what kind of vehicles they were, and it evolving into a more humanoid kind of look. But you can definitely see that with some of these kind of panels and things like that. And granted, he was kind of a busted up looking truck, but I mean, it's just really quite nice. And then coming down here a little bit more, so that you can see the details kind of in his leg area. Again, you got some more gears, and you got some panels and things like that. Just really very nice. All that same amount of detail carries through even down here. And of course, the paint variations and things like that kind of continue, so you pretty much know what to expect with the rest of it. But then coming down here for his actual feet, these are really quite intricate when you look at them. I mean, you got these little pistons right here, you got these little panels. Again, you got the tires there along the side, you got an articulation, that panel thing right there. But again, you come around here and you see some real great gears and detail just on the inside. Like I said, layers and layers of detail on here, which is really quite nice. This is definitely not something that I would have wanted to put together. I'm just, in general, very impressed with the overall craftsmanship of this entire piece. And like I said, I have Bumblebee, and it's one of those things where I really didn't expect them to top Bumblebee, but this just comes across so very nicely and really captures the look of Megatron and that menacing look that he did have in the films. I mean, I know some people do not like Michael Bay and they don't like this version of Megatron, but he was wicked, he was evil, and he definitely exudes that here in this recreation of the character. I just love it. Now, one thing I will say is that, same thing with Bumblebee, there were things I was discovering about that figure way after I did the review, and I'm pretty certain that I will do the exact same thing with this. So I do apologize if I miss anything that you may discover when you get your figure. But going over some of the articulation points, the head is, again, you do want to be careful when you're doing it, because you can see all these are fairly small, thin pieces. So the head does rotate. You can hear a nice ratchet joint, which allows you to move it around. You kind of want to grab hold of a good solid base to be able to rotate the head. part of the problem though is with all these little panels right here, it kind of gets in the way of this back section, so you don't get a real great range of motion with it. You can see that from the rotation, it also does have a pivot point right here, so you can kind of get it tilting side to side. You can hear that little joint. It's kind of like a friction joint, it feels like, so you can get it kind of tilting like that. Forward and back, you really can't do all that much, and to be I mean, you can get a little. I mean, that's trying to go very carefully. That's about it. So you got that range of motion there, and it looks down a little bit, but you can kind of hear that joint squeaking some. And again, you do want to be careful when you're doing it, probably in the head area more than anything, just because of all these small little pieces that make up his head. These little pieces right here, they have to be attached, but they're just on ball joints, so you can articulate these around. I got his little extra chain hanging out there, so you do have those pieces on both sides that move around. He does have a bit of an armpit joint. It's on a ball joint, it feels like, on the inside there, so you can wiggle that up and down like so, and you got a softer rubber piece right here which kind of hides that joint. I do kind of dig that. And then it does rotate. You can hear it does angle outward on another joint, so you got a ball joint on the interior section, and then on the exterior section you have more of this ratchet joint that allows you to position this piece around like so. And then you get a full 360-degree rotation right there as well. One thing that does kind of stink is he doesn't have any bicep swivel, at least not any that I've been able to discover. And again, I'm not going to overdo things and push things to the extreme, but I do wish that you had that so that you can rotate this in and you could create some more dynamic poses. As it is, you're stuck in really using these shoulder joints, and that's kind of unfortunate. Oh yeah, here's a piece that I just discovered that articulates. This section right here moves, so wonder if the other side has that as well. Yeah, that moves as well, so you have that little piece as well. But you do have two elbow joints here. You have this one right up here, which is kind of attached to this tire section, and then you have this joint, which allows you to really bring that arm all the way up in there. I mean, that's a great range of motion there, and actually, yeah, that rotates all the way down. So again, you do want to be careful when you're doing it, just because these panels are, you know, sticking out there. So bringing that up and then coming up to the wrist, this piece right here does flex up and down as well. The wrists do rotate around ball joints, so you get a nice range of motion there. And then you can see these little claw finger things, which have an articulation joint right there on this one. You got one right here. This just has a May joint down right here that allows it to swivel. You got the same swivel at the main section right down here for these lower fingers, and then this little tiny one also has a bit of a swivel right there. So a lot of articulation in the hand, I guess, if you want to call that a hand, and you can even rotate that around, have it off to the side like that. It's your personal preference. Coming to this side, you got the same shoulder joint, same elbow joint, and then you can see this hand is different. This one does rotate. You can move this around, and you can swivel this. Let's see, get that rotated around like so. You can bring it around like so. You can cover that up if you want to. And then these fingers as well, come down a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. You got the wrist, and then you got this joint right here, very stiff. So again, be careful as you're doing it. You can rotate those pieces out like that. This thumb section also does have a rotation forward and back. The joint right here does move, and then each individual finger has another little joint here for the claw looking thing, I guess. So I mean, lots of articulation in these pieces here, which is really very nice. Then you come down to the waist section, getting this back, and like I said, these pieces right here, kind of angle him up, these pieces right here separate. You just lift up, and then it adds a little bit of range of motion, not a heck of a lot. You get more tilt side to side with it than anything. It doesn't really go forward and back. But one thing that I will recommend doing is that if you are going to be extending that, which I think just in general looks better because again it adds depth to the chest and abdomen area, make sure that you don't have these chains too tight on his body, because if you're extending them up, if you have these completely tight, it's not going to be able to extend. And I found out that the hard way, because I had these really tight on them and then found out that they have these extension joints right there, and I couldn't separate them because the chains were too tight. But they just, you know, extend and collapse. Then you come down here to the waist, or I'm sorry, the hips. they move forward and back. They also rotate right at the very top section as well. Let's see, the knees are kind of tricky, and this guy's really heavy. You can see he's got two joints here at the knee, but one thing that's weird is the knee actually does extend down like so, but it doesn't really offer much flexibility. I mean, it kind of like moves one click forward, and I don't understand why, other than maybe straightening out the legs some, which kind of helps him. You can see he wants to topple back unless you have him positioned properly, and a lot of it is just keeping him kind of hunched forward, kind of like this. I don't think it looks all that bad. I mean, and that's kind of how Megatron looked in the movie. So I don't understand necessarily why those extra joints are right there. Because like I said, they really don't do a heck of a lot, to be totally honest. So it's kind of weird. But again, a lot of the stuff on here is very stiff. So if it is meant to do something, I don't want to force it. So you do have two joints here at the knee. And then you come down here to the ankle. And again, these ankles also extend out. You can see that I had them extended. It just adds some height to them, but it kind of keeps things kind of locked in when you have them kind of collapsed in. You can see some rotation there, but when you extend, well, that whole thing came out. So when you extend them out, and again, stiff joints on here, so I'm gonna gently set him down and give that a tug. There we go. So when you do that, you get a much more range of motion in terms of the tilt and spinning things around. You can lift this up and get that around like so. So you can get a much wider range of motion with your displays if you keep them up. And like I said, it gives them a little bit more added height, which I think just in general works good for Megatron. It just has a more sinister kind of look to him. But for the main points of articulation, that's really it on them. And all that articulation really does help with a lot of the poses, including holding his gun. All you do really is kind of get this in there, spread the fingers out a little bit. You bring that in, and then you bring the fingers around. And depending on how you want it to look, you can position it a couple different ways. But get it in there. I mean, it holds in there very nicely, and you can use that, as a display option or something like that for him. And now for a comparison, here he is next to the 3A Bumblebee. Now this is one thing that I'm a little bit kind of iffy about, because Megatron should be much larger. Bumblebee theoretically should only come to about here on him, maybe even a little less, because I know that in the film, Bumblebee comes up to about the waist on Optimus Prime, and I think Megatron is a little bit bigger than Optimus, so maybe a little bit lower than the waist area. But in terms of how big he is, Bumblebee here is a little over 15 inches in height, whereas Megatron stands at about, when you have him about as extended as you can get him, he stands about 19 inches. So either he's too big or he's too small, but either way, I still think they look pretty good together. I just do wish that the scale was a little bit more accurate, since they did such a great job of accurately capturing, the likenesses here. And now coming down for a little bit more of a, I guess, more common size comparison, here he is next to the Combiner Wars Sunstreaker. You can see this guy really is quite big. Now when it comes down to it, this is a massive and very expensive piece to add to your collection. But do not get me wrong, this figure is well worth every single dime that you pay. The amount of detail that's in this blows me away. Like I said, I really did not think that they would be able to improve upon what they did with Bumblebee, and Megatron absolutely did that. The amount of detail and paint that's thrown in here is just extraordinary. I mean, the levels of detail, in addition to the level of paint, just really does make this look terrific. Now that's not to say that I don't have a few issues with it. I do think that the eyes are a little bit too dim. I wish they were a little bit brighter. And then I really do wish that there was some kind of a bicep swivel that allowed you to kind of rotate his arms around. I don't think it's all that bad, and you can mitigate some of it, but because of the lack of bicep swivel, you really are kind of limited in some of the poses that you can do with the arm, especially if you're going to display him with this cannon here just like this. But everything else on here really is very nicely done. Tux, what are you doing? What are you doing, little boy? Are you in charge? What do you, oh, okay. He's just gonna rub his big skunk tail on Megatron, but lay down back there. If you're gonna hang out here, lay down. Lay down. Okay, well, he likes Megatron's feet. I mean, it really is an impressive piece. It is expensive, there's no question about it. And yes, the biggest problem that some people are going to have is no, it doesn't transform. But there is zero way that you're going to be able to get a figure with this amount of detail and this level of accuracy to the CGI model and actually make it transform. There was so much cheating in the CGI that we just, honestly, it happened so fast that we couldn't see it, but there's no way that you can make this transform. So people are always going to be, well, it's a transformer, it doesn't transform, well, I don't want it. Well, that's perfectly fine. I hardly ever keep my transformers in their vehicle modes anyhow. They usually stay in robot mode. So having a nice, accurate representation of Megatron in his robot mode is absolutely terrific for me. And myself, as well as a lot of other collectors out there, really do feel that this version of Megatron from the movies was the best looking. So I'm very happy that 3A has the license to do the Dark of the Moon version, because this guy is terrific. Now, if this is a figure that you'd be interested in adding to your collection, several places are already sold out. Megatron was a very hot item, and if you're interested in getting them, look around. There's different places that are currently available that you may be able to get this guy. But if you want to get these guys, jump on very quickly. Optimus Prime is coming out, as well as Starscream. They probably are not going to last that long either. So if these are pieces that you want to add, don't hesitate. I know that they're expensive, but if you really want them, you can figure something out. They just do not stay on the market for too long, and they are great pieces. So if you're looking for this guy, good luck and happy hunting. But beyond that, guys, that's about it. And once again, I would like to thank the folks over at 3A for making this review possible. So once again, I want to thank you for tuning in. This has been Optibotimus with Little Tuxedo, and until next time, I'll talk to you later.